Hi, and welcome to When They Dare to Be Powerful, a podcast series celebrating the legacy of Black women in librarianship. This series highlights the contributing authors and the extraordinary librarians featured in the book, The Legacy of Black Women in Librarianship, edited by Dr. Nicole A. Cooke. Together, these stories honor the brilliance, resilience, and leadership of Black women who have shaped and continue to shape our profession. I'm your host, Dr. Cearra Harris, and in each episode, we center the voices behind this important work, exploring their contributions, their scholarship, and the lasting impact of the women they uplift. Each conversation in this series offers an opportunity to reflect on legacy, what it means, how it's built, and why it matters. These stories remind us that Black women have always been powerful forces in librarianship, even when their work went unrecognized or undocumented. Before we dive in, if you haven't already, I can't stress this enough, pick up a copy of the book. It's an essential read for librarians, information professionals, scholars, and anyone committed to preserving and honoring our collective history. On today's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with the lovely Brooke Becker, who highlighted the legacy of Mattie Herd Roland in her chapter. Becker is an associate professor in media literacy librarian at the University of Alabama at Birmingham Libraries. Becker's work spans scholarly research, professional activities, and teaching in library and information science, with a focus on how individuals interact with media and information in academic and public contexts. Her professional contributions include publications, presentations, and collaborations that advance understanding of media literacy, digital leadership, and historical research. Becker has been recognized for her long-standing service at UAB and commitment to education and access in the library profession. A couple important notes before we transition into this episode. The first, you can probably see from this slide, I was unable to locate a verified photograph of Mattie Herd Roland. She was selected in 1918 to lead the first public library branch for African American patrons in Alabama, the Booker T. Washington branch of the Birmingham Public Library System. Her pioneering role represents an important moment in the history of public access to knowledge for Black communities in the segregated South. I also want to note that all views and interpretations expressed in this interview and associated materials are those of Brooke Becker and myself. They do not represent the official positions of our respective universities. Okay, I am so excited to share this episode with you. Brooke was a delight to speak with, so here's my conversation with the lovely Brooke Becker. Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today. You know, we're here to talk about the legacy of Black women in librarianship when they dare to be powerful. We're so excited to have you. I'm so excited to have you. I can't wait to dig into your chapter. But to start us off, can you just tell me a bit about yourself and your background?
Absolutely. Well, as it happens, I grew up in Birmingham. So this chapter was very close to me. But I grew up in Birmingham, a little bit to the north, and went to college in Birmingham. I was a history major. So, and focusing on civil rights history more specifically, even when I was in school. Then I got out, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, except that I knew that I didn't want to teach. The irony being that now I teach full time. My parents were both teachers, and all I knew was that I did not want to teach in the public school system. And here I am, completely in the depths of teaching all the teaching or presenting at one point or another all the time now. So yeah, I quickly found a job in libraries and in actually my college library. Soon after I graduated, I had worked there for 3 years in the government documents department as a student. So it was kind of a natural transition while I was figuring out what I wanted to do. And as I was doing that, I figured out exactly what I wanted to do, which is to never leave libraries. I love doing research and helping people out with that process. So I ended up never leaving the profession. Did leave the school, didn't leave the profession.
I feel like that's a common story about how we fall into librarianship and then just fall in love and now we can't escape it. Yeah,
Mhm.
same story over here too. So
Yeah.
what inspired you to participate in this project and be a part of the book?
Oh, that's the best part. Um, a colleague and I were teaching, or we were preparing to teach an honors course called Authority Control, History of Librarians, or History of Libraries, I should say. And one of the lessons we wanted to teach, and I specifically wanted to teach, given my background with Birmingham and with Alabama libraries, is I wanted part of what we discussed to be kind of an unvarnished picture of where we have been and where we're going. So, one of the things that I looked into is Birmingham Public Library, the history of it. Started with looking at racial segregation of the libraries and then integration, and Mattie's name popped up. And as it happened, I'm actually embarrassed to admit that I knew very, very little about her or her history. Really, very little about the history of um, really how the first branch was created. And I knew several things around it, but her story was very short. There was no real information out there aside from who she was, what she was doing. So I started delving into that for that class. And
Mhm.
the best part of it was that when we presented that chapter or that lesson, our students, specifically our female students, were very, very interested and very incensed by the history that she had, specifically with her position and how short-lived that position ended up being. So I wanted to know even more after that lesson, and I just couldn't stop. So when this project came out, um, I quickly looked at the names on the list, and hers was right there, and I jumped at it, thinking, okay, well, there's so many more researchers out there, and I'll never get this. But I still wanted to dig into it. So even before I actually was accepted, I was still digging in. I was still digging into her past.
Okay, so without telling us too much, because you know we want readers to pick up and read chapter 11, we do. Could you just quickly introduce us to Mattie?
Mattie Herd Roland. Roland is her married name. Mattie Herd, as she was known when she was the first African American librarian female librarian at the Booker T. Washington branch of the Birmingham Public Library. And I won't tell you too much about that branch because I want you to read the chapter, but it has an interesting history. She also has an interesting history, and I'll tease this. It's not what you would expect.
Mm.
It's not what you would expect. So I'll just tease that. And
Because you know I was gonna ask if something stand out to you, but if you teasing, I don't wanna, because it seems like all the nuggets are in there. But if there's one little thing that stood out to you during your research.
what stood out to me, and I don't know why it should have surprised me, but it did, um, was how much discussion was around her youth. She was
Mm.
that young. She was chosen specifically by the board years before she actually took over the position. She was sent for training. See, there goes my tease. She was sent for training, but all they wanted to talk about after they actually made her librarian or assistant librarian, they never gave her the title of head librarian, was her youth. And I think I think there are a number of different questions that arise from that, especially knowing that she was pretty quickly replaced.
Mm.
Um, by someone who was a little bit older, but who was also male, who was paid more. So much for teasing. I'm just going to let you know. But that part of her story, it shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. It did surprise me. And then what she ended up doing after that absolutely shows her character. And
Don't
that,
tell
I'll leave. That I'll leave.
don't tell us anymore. Do you
Yeah.
feel like her legacy still influences our profession today?
I think the spirit of her legacy does. Um, I think in a lot of ways, she definitely mirrors issues that we still deal with in the profession. Certainly valuing some some over others, um, despite the fact that we stand for, you know, freedom and equity and everyone having the right to read and to access materials and whatnot. I think there are still issues that come up in that. There were absolutely issues in her day. Um, there will always be people who want to glorify what the past looked like.
Mm.
And I think that we still see that now. But the important part is that those people have a voice and continue to make impressions on what can happen when you don't adhere to those values.
Mm. That's really powerful.
It's a reminder, I think, that we all need, especially in professions where we're supposed to protect the rights of others.
I feel like I see the answer to my next question, but I really want to hear it from you. How
Yeah,
did doing this research deepen your own purpose as a librarian in the work that you do? Like, how did that impact you, learning her story as deeply as you did?
I was both offended for her and proud of her at the same time.
Mhm.
And I think that that's, we can be so cynical in so much of what we do every day, but realizing those things that we do that keep us going. There are plenty of things that come out after us, especially if we're fighting for, right to read or, rights in general.
Mhm.
And remembering that there are those what may seem in history small things that come up. Or I think that there's probably someone out there who thinks that Mattie Herd Roland was a small part of history, when in point of fact, she was huge. Her impact might not necessarily have lasted any longer than the 6 months or so that she was in that office. But those 6 months were huge for the children in her community, for the women in her community, for the men in her community. What she went on to do was huge, even though it would seem small to a lot of people. So I think some of that aspect stays with me, that there are things that we do every day in our jobs, in our lives, but especially in our jobs, where people are trying to come after us all the time, or, just being run down at the end of the day, from patrons, from, all different things. But we have to remember that it's the smallest things that we do that can make the biggest difference to the people that we serve, whether it's for a day or for a minute or for a year or for 23 years. You know, um, those smaller things often make the bigger difference. So I look at her impact as being well outside of the duration of her actual work as a librarian.
Beautiful. When I think of my own library experience, that resonates with me so much because I was a librarian for a long time, but I have like a handful of moments that really made me feel like my library career as a librarian was really worth it. It's those
Mm-hmm.
little moments that I hold on to. I'm like, this is why I dealt with the patron that was upset when they came into the space. It didn't even bother me because I got this little handful of moments. I think that's so real when it comes to our work as librarians. It's those little moments that make everything worth it. The small impact that you're able to have on the community. You said that
Mm-hmm.
so beautifully. What did it mean to you, or what does it mean to you to be a part of this body of work?
It's actually such an honor, really, to be able to give her a voice in some ways when it's been so quiet for so long. Um, it's a privilege to be alongside the other people that are in this book, to be with Dr. Cooke, especially. Um, but really, it comes down to it was an honor and a joy to learn about her life, um, and how many that she ended up touching, no matter what happened along the way. Um, and to be a part of a work that really focuses on people and the work that they did that may never have really been a focus of anyone's attention before, in a larger sense. I look forward to other works like this coming out that focus on the breadth and the depth of what our profession encompasses. So I hope that this is not the last of these works.
You can feel the gratitude like radiating off of you, Brooke. Like it makes me want to pick it up and read it again because you can feel like you put your heart into it. So if readers could take away one central message from chapter 11, what would you want it to be?
I think it is really the lesson that Mattie Herd Roland would teach every day of her life, which is resilience in the face of obstacles.
Mm,
Going.
mm.
Something comes up, okay, you can mourn it, you can grieve it, but you keep going. If something gets in your way, you learn everything that you can about it and you keep pushing, and you use everything that comes in your way, for good or for ill, and you keep pushing and keep pushing. And even when you're older and you think, okay, well, my career is over, or it's not, or you keep learning, you keep pushing, you keep growing. So I think that that is her central theme. And I hope that that is what people get out of the chapter. And I think probably the book as well.
Feel like that's a message we all need today. So I don't want our time to end, but my final question, I don't. My final question for you is what are your hopes for the future of our field?
Mm, that's a fun one.
Hmm.
My hope for our field is that we keep changing and we keep growing and we keep facing things head on, no matter how difficult they may be. It's a tough time out now. It's a tough time for a lot of people out there right now. Um, and I hope we don't go backwards. So my most desperate hope is that we keep changing, we keep expanding and growing. So, and accepting everyone.
That's beautiful, but thank you so much for your time, your research. Thank you for lending your expertise and contributing to this book. Your research matters, and I hope this is just the beginning of more stories that you tell so that our history can be preserved the right way. Y'all, thank you for tuning in. I want to encourage you to pick up When They Dare to Be Powerful and check out chapter 11 and learn all about this fantastic librarian that Brooke wrote about. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I want to send a special thank you again to Brooke for their meaningful contributions to the legacy of Black women in librarianship. This work is powerful, necessary, and deeply affirming, and we are a better profession because of people like you. If you haven't already, y'all pick up a copy of the book today and spend some time with these stories. They deserve to be read, remembered, and shared. Thank you so much for listening to When They Dare to Be Powerful. I'm Dr. Cearra Harris, and I'll catch you in the next episode.